Welcome. It's really lovely to see everybody here this evening. My name is Fiona Bennett. I'm one of the ministers here at Augustine Church. It's a real privilege that we have Debora with us this evening. We're very grateful that she's come, rector of Edinburgh University, but with a much longer story at the journey to bring you to this place. So it's a real privilege that we can hear your story this evening, and we thank you for that. The conversation between Debora and Katrina will go for sort of 40 minutes, an hour. We'll see how it goes. Then there'll be time space for questions. There are people watching online as well, and they too will contribute questions. So we'll just work with them. And the lady who's, Linda, who's hosting online, will let me know what the questions are, and we'll work from there between us. This evening is going to be recorded in as much as the conversation between Debora and Katrina is going to be recorded, but none of you are in the shot. So, and I think at question time we'll stop the recording. I think that's what we'll do. So there's kind of privacy for people within the process of that. That all kind of feels okay for everybody. The bathrooms are out and round to the left. We do ask people, I'm only speaking with my mask off because I'm speaking just now. We ask people to remain with their masks on, but if there's anything that we can do to help with comfort, let us know. The windows actually are shut, I'm just realising, because they have been open, but it is cold. So if folk get really cold, let us know and we can put some heating on. That feels all right for folk. So I'm just going to hand over to Katrina, who is one of our elders here. She's the elder who leads the team for Justice and Peace. And it was Katrina's idea, actually. She said, "Oh, there's Debora." And so the conversation began. So thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Fiona. Yes, thank you very much, Debora, for coming. We really appreciate it. So you are now rector of Edinburgh University, and there have been 53 rectors before you, and 53 of them have been white, and 51 of them have been men. So you are the first Black women rector of Edinburgh University, and we offer you our heartfelt congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if we start at the very beginning of your story, you want to talk about your growing up in what was then Zaire, and is now the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a wee bit about your childhood?
I was born at the time Zaire was the most stable country in Africa, the most welcoming, the most peaceful. It had the strongest money in Africa. One Zaire was the equivalent of $2 US at the time I was born. My father was one of the first professors to have come to Germany to study physics and return to build the Congo. He was one of the professors that the new Congo in the post-independent time was building the country. So at the time I was born, my father called me Fortune, which in Swahili means feza. So it was quite a good upbringing in a peaceful country. At the time of Zaire, you don't find military on the streets. You don't find gun on the streets. You as a child, and I used to be a very wild girl, running into the bushes in the forest, running, and I get lost. The elder will find me, and I ask, "What's your family?" And then he'll bring me safely at home. Yeah. And I remember my grandmother, my mother at that time would say, "Where are you running from? Where are you running? Where are you going?" And my grandmother said, "She belonged to the world." Later on.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, my grandma would always say that she belonged to the world.
She knew already?
She knew already. Yeah, she knew. May she rest in peace. You know, and that was it, the little girl I used to be. And the country very quickly fall on the dictatorship of Mobutu, and things become very bad. All the country, we wanted a change. We wanted something, somebody new, somebody to come and get Mobutu out of the country. We wanted democracy, we wanted all these things. But the person who came after Mobutu brought us back to dark days. So girls' education was stopped at that time. Even the way the girl could wear the clothing, was stopped. The girl could not wear trousers. That was on my first year at the university at law school.
Oh,
And I
very
was
tough.
very upset about that because the way I was brought up, the way I was growing was a very different thing that I saw when the new president, Kabila Laurent, arrived. And this is where I started my activism, at university, my first year at university, fighting for the freedom of the girls to continue their education and to wear whatever they want to wear. But in the Congolese tradition, the Congolese culture, a girl who goes too far on education is a problem, and the people used to look at me over the glasses like this. Too much education. But again, for my parents, they saw the way the world was changing very fast, and they trust that whether our girls can continue their education is a good thing. But at the time I completed university, I was the first girl in my family for generation to complete university education. I was the first girl. And then my sister after me did continue on the education in some level, but I went far on having a professional career as a lawyer. So I was the first in my family altogether to go to the bar and to be qualified as a lawyer.
And why did you want to be a lawyer in particular?
It was the injustice I saw. I was born in a family that was very, very rich, very established. And my family name, Kayembe, is a very long name from long tradition. So it's very well known. So we had a privileged life. It was a family, a place with everything. But when I was 19 and I was led to go to see the country and to go to countryside and the places of poverty, what I saw shocked me. We're in our home, because we didn't use bank in Congo, you have cash and you threw them into the toilet because you don't know where to put them in your bedroom. And food, we can eat as much as we want and then we threw them in the bin. But once I went to that places when I saw a child of age of 3 crying because she didn't have any meal at all in 2 days, it shocked me. For the first time, I saw the gap in inequality in the Congo, and I saw how we, the richer, were becoming richer, and the poor are just collapsing. And when you go to those places and where there are so many people in poverty, you see how they lost people, how they're burying them, the relative. It shocked me. I remember on that day when I saw the little girl crying, I ran home to our toilet and I took the money and I went to give to the family straight away. And then with my comrade at university, we started helping people. So for me, that appeal of seeing what was happening was to see equality in the country to be established and to be recognized by our government. But also reading everything and traveling around the world as a young girl, seeing the differences of race and the inequality of race. So from such a young age as 19, I had this vision of fighting for equality between people, equality for all.
And you thought that the law, you thought you could do that through the law?
Through the law, it was the right place to do it. Because through the law, you can edict laws, you can set up policies, and you can change the world. Because for me, whatever thing I was doing, it was just to change the world. A better world, a peaceful world, a more just world. But at that time, it's not an issue of race. It's us Congolese, all black, but so much injustice. And then we just survive a civil war. So we survive a civil war and the consequences of the civil war. My last year at law school, I was admitted as an intern at the United Nations office in the Congo. Many people were, wow, how did you get that position? But because then at university, I was a human rights activist. I wasn't a lawyer, but I was a human rights activist. working closely with international organizations and denouncing the crime of our government. So it gave me the door to go there. But during the time I was an intern, I had the right to have access to the most sensible documentation about human rights abuse in the Congo. I don't know if you heard about the massacre of Kasika. Kasika is a small village in the northern Kivu, in the Congo. And in one single day, 525 women were buried alive.
Oh, my goodness.
One single
Wow.
day. As a young intern, I have to travel with my supervisor at the site where the women were buried. You know, I saw bodies of suffocated women, one on the top of the other, one on the top of the other. You know, this hatred, it doesn't look at color of skin. It's just hatred.
So what was that about? Why?
What happened is when Kabila, Laurent Desiré Kabila, he came to the Eastern Congo, he took the boys and the man to come to his army so they can continue through Kinshasa to destabilize Mobutu and to take power. Women stood to the land and become landlady. Unfortunately for those women, those land had minings, cobalt, cassiterite, those new mining that fascinate our phones and tablets. And so those militia, in order to put a war of terror on local villages, they take landladies and bury them alive. For a girl of 25, 24, never married, for me, it was something. It was something. My country was collapsing into pieces, and the rest of the world was watching. The rest of the world was watching. And I had at that time the assertion that the world know and they don't care. So we Congolese has to fight for our land. So I took a front foot against my own government inside my own country. So that was my biggest battle then. So the whole attention was around me, who was telling the world the truth, and I was the person to be suffocated. So that was it.
So I'm assuming that's why you ended up having to flee to England.
Yes.
Yes, the government wouldn't allow you to continue with that.
No, not at all. No.
So now you were a refugee in England.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us a bit about how the asylum system works and how you can finally gain settled status as a refugee in the UK?
If you look at the process, the way it's established in this country, no one should get granted asylum in Britain. The normal process, just the normal process. No one should get an asylum in the UK. No one. But in my case, I went through the same process. So I landed at the airport and I claimed asylum at the airport. And then I stayed in London for a few days because when I arrived in London, I have a long journey leaving the Congo. It wasn't a flight directly from Congo to the UK, no. I have to take a truck to leave Kinshasa to Angola. From Angola, I took another flight to Morocco. Then from Morocco, I waited a long time because I was a pregnant woman. Then I landed in London. I landed in London, no one could recognize me. I was completely lose weight and a very small tummy of pregnancy. And I told the immigration officer, I'm 7 months pregnant. And he keep asking me, where's your tummy? He said, tummy, there's no tummy at all. So that was...
So how long was it between leaving Kinshasa and actually arriving in London?
4 months for me.
4 months.
Yeah, it was just to wait who's gonna take the relay. But again, for me, and looking at my political profile at that time, ended up in Belgium, could have me sent back to Kinshasa. So the only country was not really in good term with Kinshasa was the UK, with Tony Blair. At that time was making very severe declaration against the Kinshasa government. So that's why the agent thought it would be better for you to settle in the UK, yes. So I arrived, I stayed in London for some time in hospital until I recovered. Then I was dispatched to north of England in a small town called Blackburn in Darwin, in a small village of Darwin. But the MP of that village is Jack Straw. Jack Straw, the foreign secretary. In that time, he was the MP. So a very difficult time, extremely difficult. 3 months later, my asylum case was dismissed, and I was notified to be shipped back to the Congo. But they could not ship me back because I had a cesarean. So for the cesarean time until I recover, then they could ship me back. So that was my time of grace, I have to say. So at the time I recovered, I went to ask to meet Jack Straw. But what I told Jack Straw was some of the content of the thing that until this day, I never share it to the world. But I knew if I tell him those things, he'll know exactly who I am. Because he was foreign secretary, and he was in the Congo at the time Kabila was assassinated. So I went to him and I told him all those things. And he said, I believe you.
So up until then, the officials hadn't believed who you were, basically.
No, they didn't. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know. When I claimed asylum initially, I told them, they asked me questions about my journey. How did I manage to get in the UK? Then I had a substantial interview, which I never finished because on that day my water broke and they took me to the hospital. But at that time there was a delay. If you pass the delay, your asylum is annulled. So this is what happened to me. So it was for humanitarian reason, but they didn't want to take that in consideration either. So what happened is, then when I met Jack Straw wrote to John Reid, who was a Scots minister. At that time, the Home Office minister. And John Reid wrote to me actually 2 days after, and he says that I have written to the case working office at the immigration to look at your case again in the light of my discussion with Mr. Straw. So I waited like 6 months. The immigration wrote to me this time. They said that your case has been dismissed. We can no longer open your case. Every single evidence you brought during that case will not be reconsidered. So we will give you the term of looking on review on your case, and you have to submit to that. So one of the cases was, I'll have a special court. During that special court, I'll need to bring forward a witness who saw me in the Congo with my profession as a lawyer. And that witness shall be a lawyer just like me, from the same bar just like me, but who has claimed asylum and left the Congo. And I had only one colleague in France. That was one thing. But that thing, with someone with an asylum seeker with no money, I'm going to pay for my colleague to come. So the United Reformed Church in Darwin raised an evening meeting like this, and we raised the money, we paid the ticket for the colleague to come to witness for me.
This is, it's interesting because now obviously we're seeing you as rector of Edinburgh University, you've obviously got settled status, etc., etc. It's kind of like the happy ending.
Yeah.
But at the time, this must have been absolutely horrendous.
It was horrendous. We were in poverty, no money, and the only way we could survive was ordinary people just like you, putting money aside, buying nappies for the babies, clothing for the babies, we're entirely depending on people charity. Although my education, my experience, things I've done in life, for a minute stop. But I had a feeling then, for every single thing I've done to fight for the poor and those in need and justice, somehow there was someone up there watching over me and touching people hard to support me. That was the feeling I had. Then the colleague came. The court itself took 6 hours. The judge went on every single document, tracing and checking. So we came home and we knew the decision would take 6 weeks. But 12 weeks later, no answers. People at church began to wonder, people at church asking questions. Is anything happened? Nothing happened. But the judge, what is the judge did? The judge granted me asylum, but then took the paperwork to the review at immigration and told them, if there is anything in terms of law I made wrong here, you need to just tell me, and then we can make an appeal. The immigration took the paper. They waited until the end of the delay. That's why it took so long. We didn't know any news. So we sat home and we had somebody at the door giving us our 5-year statute to stay in the UK. So that was one step. This is the process. So it's really depending on one story to another, on one circumstance to another. There is no formal way to go to asylum, but I think if people think that the right has been taken away from them and they've been persecuted, they should not hesitate to claim asylum, because it's the right that are given to every people around the world to claim asylum. And don't make a system or a policy to put you back to have access to your rights. Don't allow that. If you can do something, if you can make something, and I've been doing it quite a lot since I became rector, as I receive many letters coming from around the world, even here in the UK, people writing to me, asking me about the asylum case. What can we do? What can we do? I keep saying this. It is your right to claim asylum. Claim asylum. Whatever there is, claim it. And in the end, there's always a tunnel to that, a light in the tunnel for that.
And when someone arrives and they're claiming asylum, do they then get some money from the government, like a weekly income of some kind?
At my time, we were a family of 4 and we were living with £35 per week. Today, I know a family of 4 live with £25 per week. So it's getting worse in terms of cash given to asylum seekers. And people who have no family, no dependent, really, they just left the way. And I keep campaigning about this, even from the government, and telling them, it's one thing that people seek asylum, it's another thing to grant them asylum, but it's also another thing to be human enough to consider the asylum seeker as a human being. You know, it's another thing. In my country, the Congo, we had refugees from the apartheid years, the South Africans. We had many of them for so many years. We had survivors of the time of Savimbi in Angola, many of them in the Congo. We have survivors of the brutal regime of Gaddafi, many of them. But they are the one who runs all the petrol business in the Congo, or the shop in the Congo. They are refugees coming and settling in the Congo. But in the Congo, we do not stop people to live their livelihood. If you think you can do a business, do it. If you think you can work, work. But just follow the rules of the law of the country. Simple. We don't control people. We don't control where they're staying, where they're living. You know, the whole country, I have to say, we don't have a benefit system. That's true. That's same to everyone. But in the minute you come to the country, we avoid asking you where you're from. We tell you welcome.
That's lovely.
That's the Congo. Yeah. We tell you welcome. We don't ask you where you're from. We tell you welcome. And if we have water, we give you a seat, we give you water, because we have plenty of water to feed the rest of the world. Plenty, we give you. But whether you want to settle to do your business, it's your own business. Just respect the law of the land. I don't think it's very difficult for the British to do the same. I know one thing is certain. You know, immigration is a matter of national security. You know, I did international public law and I know the power of immigration. The same power of immigration that's stopping so many good people to come and settle in Scotland. Because if you have many people settling in Scotland, intelligence people come, a huge number coming to Scotland, you're not going to have a conservative government in London. That's for sure. The number of people in Scotland is small. Is to control the power, is to control that you have less power in your own land. People need to understand that. But I keep saying this, you can't mix up everything. Refugees come to your land because they want to settle for some of the time. When the country is peaceful, they return. And when you look at the paper with the United Nations, the majority of all refugees leave their home. 60% of them end up returning to their own country. They don't stay. they
Is
return.
is that quite successful, that transition? You know, if you've been a refugee, you've settled somewhere, and then your country has changed that you can go back. That seems to me to be quite a difficult transition to make again, to go back.
I think for me personally, Deborah, it's still until today a very impossible thing to return to the Congo. Although since I become rector, people are begging me to return to become president of the country. And I keep saying, thank you. You think of becoming president. It's nice, you know. But for me, it's something, I don't know if I can do that. Sincerely, I don't know if I can return, you know. But again, the statistics show most end up to return. At least those who came, but the children who were born after might stay in this country because they were born in this country. Yeah. But the one who came initially end up returning. You know, they end up returning. But what I'm trying to say is, every single country has a right to control the people of its land. And there are laws that every single people has to submit to. But don't be cruel to people. Yeah. Because what we're seeing now is nothing else than cruelty. It's just cruel.
And unnecessary.
Yeah, and unnecessary. Yeah, and unnecessary.
Yeah. It's inhuman. Yeah. I think you did a lot of volunteer work, actually. With refugees.
Yeah. I started volunteering as an interpreter immediately after Sophie was born. When Sophie was 7-8 months. And at the time when I arrived in Blackburn and Darwin, you have the majority of Pakistani and Indian, and the government was trying to put a sort of balance of bringing African in the city. So you have a huge majority of Congolese in that town. It's like Kinshasa. You know, people talking in Lingala. So I started volunteering there in interpreting and translation. When I had the right to stay in the country, so I set up the company, the interpreting company. With the interpreting company, I started serving the US Immigration Services from telephone interpreting, the interview. So that was the whole corner of Africa, all the African there, because the American function that they take the refugees to temporary places where they get screened with the health. If they are positive for HIV, positive for tuberculosis or malaria, they will stay on those temporary places at the time of the treatment. Once they are stable enough to go to America, then they go to America. So my role is to interpret at the time of the screening, and then to interpret to get ready to arrive in America, and I interpret at the time they arrive in America to be ready to go to work straight away. So over a decade, I had over 1 million interviews. 1 million stories of people, how they settled, how they understood the livelihood. That was in the UK, and they brought me a lot of opening. I served the Ministry of Justice for so many years, you know, as an interpreter. So I started for something very small, which was voluntarily, was something very big, you know, with a very good pay, and it was really good. And then until I joined the International Criminal Court as a lawyer, and then as an interpreter. On both
so capacity. You actually have a fantastic overview then.
Yes.
Of refugees.
Refugee lives and refugee settlement and refugees way is being undered by government around the world. I know everything by head. Everything. Yeah. That's why with the Afghan crisis, the university did not hesitate to say, we're leaving this Afghan matter to the rector because they know I've been there. Yeah.
And for a refugee who's just arrived in the country, what is the most important thing for them on arrival?
On arrival, a refugee has to be humbled. One of the things I experienced was to learn from the place I arrived. That's one of the things. You don't know anything, but you have to learn from the people you find in the land. What happened to me is, I've been in many places before I seek asylum around the world. But I've never been to the UK. So when I came to the UK, I remember the first 3 weeks, I had someone from the community services to take me to the shop and to teach me how to buy something, how to speak to someone, how to address yourself to someone. That was quite different than the way I've learned life some places, although I was very well educated, but it was necessary for me. So some kind of humility for refugee to listen to the custom, the law of the land is very important. To learn from the others, always learn. Even the exercise of learning, it's every day on our lives. You know, you can't say that I've learned enough. You learn every day, and that is
So that's
very
interesting.
important.
You're taking it from the refugees' point of view,
Yeah.
which I suppose is kind of what I was asking, but I was really thinking, I suppose, from non-refugees, people living here. So a refugee coming here, what's the first thing I suppose that we could do for them?
Being welcoming, and
okay.
stop asking too many questions,
Uh-huh.
because that can put people off. You know,
Yeah.
stop asking too many questions. Welcoming, it does not say that you cannot ask questions, but ask questions that related to making this person understood the environment and the reason why you are approaching him. With the time, the person will trust you and will open up to you. I can tell you, people come to a place of suffering. The first thing they want to do is to tell you what they've been through. You don't need even to ask questions. It's to tell you where they've been through. That's the experience I had with so many people in my life, whether it's in practice of law, whether it's in a voluntary setting. Being welcoming is having more time to listen than to ask. You know, that's a very basic thing. And the exercise of trying to know the person, it shall always be one another. You try to know me, I'll now try to know you. So one of the negative attitudes would be if I ask you, what time were you born? And you ask me, you tell me, I cannot tell you that. But you still want me to tell you what time I was born. You know, so these are very difficult situation where people usually end up with. You know, each one of us has his own personality. But what I think is for us to welcome, to make new people coming to our land welcoming, we should ask less questions, but we should listen more.
That's really good advice.
Because I could tell you, people come from a place of suffering, they have to open and say something. They have to tell the story. Definitely. Yeah.
Good advice. Thank you. Yeah. And then going forward for a refugee, so listening, and then.
Well, the other thing is, if you can help. But again, I repeat this: don't ask too many questions.
Okay.
You know, it puts people off all the time. If you can help as much as you can. If you can help, if you cannot help, don't get to help, because helping refugees is it's a burden. You know, you're helping someone, but the situation doesn't get better. You know, you're helping someone, the immigration send a very bad letter. That will disturb your peace. You disturb my peace. You know, you want to be at peace when you're helping somebody. So you need to be aware that being a refugee in this country without the right to stay in the country is a very difficult life. It's a very challenging life. And when you come forward, you want to help somebody, you need to be conscious this person is a person of suffering, because the system has put him where he is, and the system is putting me, and he is an unhappy person. You know, for a refugee, just the letter to the postman can change the day. Just the letter coming to the post can change the day. But for us who are settling in this country, is the telephone bill, is the electricity and gas bill and all this. But for the refugee, just the letter saying we don't believe your story. And it's very common. You know, it's very common. And then you don't believe your story, we have to send you back. The person just seeing himself getting executed at the airport when he returns.
And also having a story of suffering.
Yeah.
And it not being believed, that in itself
it's already heavy. It's a burden.
Horrendous.
Yeah, it's a burden. Just to have a story of suffering. It's as I said, I had my story of suffering, and for many years I have worked alongside of people who have story of suffering. It has affected me. But my fantastic GP and our fantastic National Health Service kept me alive. Not only kept me alive, kept me sane. because there was days I was just about to go insane for the story I was listening. And I'm trying to help through interpretation, so these people can have a little relief. So there's a lot of, the life of refugee is a difficult life. But it's also, if you're a country that welcomes the refugee, as the Bible teaches us, you're a blessed country. Your country who make refugee at ease in your land, you are a blessed country.
Yeah.
For me, although my experience has been horrible, but this country has been a blessing to me. I came here, I went through terrible things, I went through a lot of humiliation, but here I am alive. I am a restored person, I am a healed person, because of the institution of this land, because of the people of this land, you know? So there's something to say here. There's a good and bad, but I look at the bad. I talk about the bad to everyone, so people can take example from it, and I keep the good for me to get the best, to become the best in the world. That's how I live.
So really that touches my heart actually, yeah, thank you. Really it's the institutions then that we need to change.
It's the institution. I mean, I don't know about this government we have at the moment, the one in Westminster right now, if there is a little humanity for these people. You know, the African aid cuts they've done, the 4 billion cuts they've done, they've stopped every single TB clinic to provide medication in Africa. They stopped medication for HIV and AIDS to be provided in Africa. I mean, all these services that incompetent government in Africa cannot provide to its own people. This aid was providing that to the people without even to pay. As a result, my little brother died because he didn't have the TB medication.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You know? So I look at that, it's revolting. It brings me anger. My brother had TB diagnosis in 2018. 2019, the beginning of 19, we had the pandemic hitting. We went on lockdown. He couldn't get the tablets. I tried my very best. I cannot smuggle any drugs to the Congo coming from foreign country. So he need to find the drugs in the Congo, and there was no drugs in the Congo. He could find some of them to buy. I continued to buy until the aid came, the head cut came, and the program shut down. My brother suffered from tuberculosis until tuberculosis consumed him and killed him.
I'm so sorry.
He was only 32. So I wonder if in this government there are people who think about what they're doing.
Yeah, they probably don't think about the consequences, do they?
There are consequences around the world. When you stop a system that's been there for a while, it saved millions of people. You wake up in the morning and you stop it. There are consequences to it.
Yeah. I'm really sorry about your brother.
But again, the Congo is still providing enough coltan and cassiterate for telephone and tablet. It's still,
Yeah.
We lost 60 million people all together. From the time the colonization came, we have half a century of colonization to feed Belgium. The Belgium that you see here, built like this, that's the gold, the diamond from the Congo for half a century. How much a country can give to the world? You can give peace to its own people. How much? I think it's unfair because as a human, I have a right to have my brother hold, laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll miss him. I'll miss him calling me in the middle of the night. Sis, my phone is broke. Can you send me money tomorrow morning and buy a new phone? That's why brothers are, right? That's why we have little brothers. Since mom and dad are no longer there, that's why we have little brothers. And I'll miss that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. We have an image of Africa that has been really damaged, actually, by all the focus on starving children. That kind of is the British image, I'm afraid. Can you give us a different, more accurate image of the continent of Africa?
Africa, I call Africa the kingdom of joy. Because our children in Africa, they don't have shoe. They have no shoe. And you can still see them on the street dancing and enjoying the day.
Yeah.
You know? There are starvation in Africa, I agree. I don't disagree, there are starvation. But if you compare this starvation to the reality that every day, the children of Africa are not starving. That is not true. That is not true. A child of Africa can go to the tree and get a fruit to eat without paying for it. It's still possible in Africa. You know, the fruit, you see the mangoes, the apples and all that. In the northern Kivu, you don't buy for that. You eat them, and that's it. So how can you say the child's starving? They are starvation in some level because our government, as I said, I keep calling them incompetent government, that's one, and they don't respect their people. You know, when there is no respect of people, there is no transparency, there is no good governance, it's simply disrespect of your own people. And that, when you arrive at that level, you see children suffering. I am happy to see NGO showing the image of children starving in Africa, but I'll be very happy for them to show images of happy children in Africa, because there are many of them. There are many, many children in Africa enjoying their poverty. Because we have to say here, there is poverty in Africa, which is instrumented by the politics in order to control the power. But really, in Africa, we could not complain about food. We have plenty. But it's all politics.
It seems to me there's a lot of social capital as well. Like you were saying about in the Congo being so welcoming.
So welcoming. Social capital is one of those things. And I mean, perhaps now with the effect of war and everything, some behavior might be affected. But there is some originality with the African people. A child in Africa belongs to the whole community. It's not the child of one person, he belongs to the whole community. So as community, we will look after the child. And that is something still in Africa until today, you know. I think the media is trying to transform this in order to come here to raise money. But usually I wonder where those money goes exactly. Are they really going to the children of Africa? There's a question mark there. You know, they are, I have to say, good organization in Africa who are doing very good job, but there are some of them, I do believe, they're only doing for their own purposes. But it is really not fair to give this starvation of Africa. We have places where the Sahara has been brought down to drone because of the climate changing, but it's not the whole. That's not right. You know, we don't have places like that in the Congo. The Congo is a very green country. It's green from everywhere. And I see that green place again. I was doing a documentary with the French the French Institute here for COP26, and they asked me, what is the best memory of your childhood? And I said, running into the forest on a green land.
Lovely.
It was wonderful. I can run, I can jump, it's all green, it's all beautiful. And like always, I get lost and somebody found me to send me back to my family.
That's the community thing again, isn't
That's
it?
the community thing. It's the trust. It's the trust. It's the trust that we keep looking now here in this country. The trust to our government, the trust to our local authorities is the trust. that trust that we need to rebuild in this land. Very important.
I was going to ask you as well about anti-racism, because I know that that's really your work on anti-racism, and your speech in front of the Scottish Parliament is really what brought you to the attention of the university. So
I think what brought me to attention to university was the Freedom Walk campaign. The circumstances of me launching the Freedom Walk campaign, it was because of the racism I faced in Scotland, particularly directly to me and to my home, to my properties. You know, when people goes on such level of hatred to take nails and to put in your tire so you can get killed while you've done nothing wrong to them, you wonder. You know, you wonder. But let me tell you something. For me, the hatred that I want to fight in this land is the same hatred that I want to fight in the Congo. It's the same hatred I want to fight in America. It's the same hatred I want to fight everywhere I find it. Why? Because hatred has no color of skin. He has no religion. He has no belief. It is just hatred. And it comes to your society to divide you. It's come to your society to destroy you. That's hatred. We've seen them. We see hatred in South Africa, and we see that through apartheid. We see hatred, you know, many places. But with the Freedom Walk campaign, what I wanted to bring forward was that as a society, as citizens, we have to respect each other. We cannot live on going to places or other people to destroy them simply because we believe their skin color made them inferior to us. And for the Freedom Walk campaign also was the opportunity to lobby in our parliament about change, radical change, meaningful change. Because if we don't lobby in our parliament to make our society better, then we destroy ourselves. But when I launched the Freedom Walk campaign, the pandemic was at its beginning. Today, how many pandemics do you think we have? We have two. You have the climate pandemic, and we have the heart pandemic. Is this two discriminate? No, it doesn't discriminate. Because if climate struck here, it's not going to choose the black person to die. It will strike and this building will collapse. Or if it's the heat is going to all consume us. That's climate pandemic, yeah? And the health pandemic, do you know how many people die around the world? Did you see less black people dying or more white people dying? People are just dying. So us, as human, we have to look after ourselves against this instead of falling out between each other for hatred.
So what exactly is the Freedom Walk campaign?
The Freedom Walk campaign is a campaign that lobbies for social reform in our country. First of all. And then the Freedom Walk campaign promotes equality, equal opportunity for all, and a fair society. So we're not really looking at skin colors and all these things, but the thing is, we live in a society where the divide is under the race and racism. That's why anti-racism came to the first page of the Freedom Walk campaign. And then the incident in my home and the incident with my daughter at school being asked to perform a slave dance in front of the classmates made it bad. Because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This is a child born in Britain, and the teacher is asking her to perform a slave dance in the front of the classmates. And what's happened there is that the teacher thinks it's normal, and the children in the classroom, the pupil, refuse to stay in the class, leave the classroom, and the teacher is crying. Explain that to me. So clearly, that teacher was not trained for the education she was prepared to give to the children in the classroom.
And the children were better educated than her.
Yeah. You know, so this is why I took the anti-racist petition to Parliament. And the reason was to prepare, to train teacher on educating the children in the classroom, okay? And to not decolonize, but to select what kind of education could you produce in the classroom, in the front of the children, where there is no frustration between the children. Because after I launched this petition, I received 4 Zoom calls from Germany on Black children, from 2 for Senegal, 1 for Gambia. And the children were telling their stories to me on Zoom, saying that they were the best people in the class. But the day they have the course on slavery in the classroom, the teacher drew the picture of Black people with the chain and drawing them the way they were drawing them from the boats in the classroom. So that day, the boy refused to return to the class again because he felt humiliated. He felt humiliated. I said this, there's always a way to teach children, to give a better education to children. But people need to be trained how to do that. Because that boy told me he doesn't want to go back to the class. He was the most intelligent boy to the class. Now he's the slave with the chain. For a child who was only 12 years old, born in Germany. You see how things are very difficult. This is why I push very hard, and I thank God the parliament listened to me. Because right now there is a reform curriculum that the government is working at the moment to reform the education, the decolonization, which is the same the university is trying to do, the University of Edinburgh is trying to do. I hope we'll get somewhere. It's just not, cheap talk. What I don't want to see, all these things I'm doing to become a cheap talk. I don't want that. I want to see something concrete to happen. But the thing is, in a society where we're living, we need to teach the truth. That's what I told the head teacher on that day. I said, okay, listen, if you think it's fair to teach the children the story of slavery, what do you teach the children about the behavior of those who took the slave from their homes? Explain that to me. Because they were white people. They come to African land, they took human beings, and they sold them into bondage. What do you think they are? Did you tell the children it's a good behavior to do? Or did you correct them? Sometimes when you confront people, they become very angry at you because you're telling them the simple truth. I agree, story has to be told. It has to be told in a constructive manner.
Yes.
Not in an humiliative manner. It has to be told.
It is really important that it's told and that people here know our part in it.
Yeah.
I live in a little village in Fife.
Yeah.
And there's a big house which is now a school, but that belonged to a slave owner. And I think it's really important that we know that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That a lot of our wealth comes from that.
From that, yes. I mean, there's a lot of effort now with the death of George Floyd. I wish it won't be the death of George Floyd to see people to wake from the sleep. One of the things I said, there is a God. For a long time, I was watching. There was a newspaper, Belgium newspaper, who called me. I didn't know that the King Belgium statue was Leopold II, was moved from the center of Brussels and sent to in the corner of a museum. So the journalist called me and said, Debora, Kayembe, did you see what happened on TV? I said, I don't know what happened on TV. I said, the King Belgium statue in the center of Brussels has been taken off and they sent it in the corner of a museum. That's happened? Yes. There is a God. There is a God.
Yeah.
There is a God.
Yeah.
King Belgium, Leopold II, destroyed the Congo for half a century, 50 years.
He was truly,
ruthless man.
He was appalling. Yeah.
Take the little girls in a zoo with the animals so they can walk together with the animal, and the Belgian will give to the little girl the same banana they're going to the chimpanzee in the zoo. They get the chocolate, caoutchouc in the Congo now, until the women have the hands cuts, so you can have enough to bring in Belgium. Yeah. I was joking 2 days ago. On Wednesday, I'm receiving for the first time an ambassador at Edinburgh University, and the person was saying to me, this time is this ambassador, next time is going to be the Belgium ambassador. I looked at him and said, what? Okay. make sure that you put a place for him at the main library, but no tea or coffee for him. They've written enough from the Congo, so no. And he laughed, because sometimes those things that hurt you can still hurt you because we're human. We remember that, and it's terrible.
And it's not actually that long ago that he was having people's hands and feet cut off.
No long ago.
It was
No
the beginning of
long
the
ago.
20th century, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's one of those who stayed quite long on this, on this carnage of people. It's difficult. Yeah. Well, that journalist was surprised. He laughed just the way you laugh. I said, "What? There is a God, and at work, things happen." But I wish it wasn't that. I wish us people, that's why things happen in our society, is to wake us and to look around us. Is this normal? Is this still normal? Can we still behaving this way? That is important. But I keep saying this to people again and again. There will never be a war of race in this world, and you'll never win. Simply because we've been through this before, and we survived them. The Americans survived Jim Crow law. We survived colonization. There's no white people coming to the Congo, settling the Congo. They're still coming. There's no white people marrying our girls. They're still coming. So why do we fight for petty things? For control of no sense. What we need to look at is two things: is peace and justice. Because if we walk to the path of peace and walk the path of justice, we are in the good path. Simply as that.
So I think you've probably really answered this question already, but what is your mission as rector of Edinburgh University?
One of the first missions at Edinburgh University is that currently the university is suffering of a crisis of race and identity. The LGBT community are suffering at Edinburgh University, and women are suffering at Edinburgh University. So for me, we need to create an environment of respect at Edinburgh University. The second one is, for one, that brought me forward, is the decolonization of the curriculum, as well as naming the new building on new names. I want to push that to be realized. I want to live that, I want to see that happen. The third one, I want this university to serve Scotland. I want the children of Scottish people to attend this university. This year already, I have the highest number of Scottish children coming to Edinburgh University, and I'm very happy for that. But I need more disadvantaged Scottish children to attend Edinburgh University. I want to see that happen. That is what I'm looking forward. And on an activism, at the moment, I have, from the 5th of October, a community exercise to the whole university community, and to anyone interested to equality and justice and diversity, we call respect. It is an opportunity for us to come together, just like we are here, to talk about ourselves, to talk about our story, students, staff, to get along, to understand the meaning of us. So on the first day, we're going to talk about racism, we're going to talk about LGBT, homophobia, we're going to talk about colonization. On the second day, I think we're going to talk about the progress on what is the university have been promised to do and has not been realizing. And on the third session, we're going to invite everyone who has a story to share the story, just like we're sitting here, and to try and understand each other. But those who are going to come on that day, we bring the food from their own countries and we share the meal from their own countries.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and then on the last day, I'll be cooking for my students.
Fantastic. And what can we as wider society out with the university, what can we do to help you with your mission?
I think it's to do the same exercise within your community, different community, different program, do the same exercise, trying to know each other. You'll see how rich it is to share your stories, to discover each other, and how that can can generate respect between you. Because we are suffering, we have a crisis of respect in this whole world. Not only in Scotland, we have a crisis of respect. We did not respect our own planet, we wasted it. We wasted it. Why? Because maybe we're ignorant to realize that wasting things could have an effect in our way of living, in our way of our society. The same that we have welcomed a pandemic. After we had one a century ago, it came back to us again. So those things are very important. To learn about us without writing, but looking at the face of each other. You know, the human interaction has a different power than when you wrote something in a paper.
Yeah.
That's what I need to build in this university.
Well, I'm kind of aware that I've been sort of hogging you, and I should let the floor. But I've got one last question, and that is, sorry guys, that is, what role has your faith played in your journey?
Extraordinary.
Just a small question.
Extraordinary, extraordinary. I don't think there is anything I could do in my life without my faith. I don't think there's anything. Maybe people think I'm crazy, but everything I do, I ask God. I always ask God. I ask for a sign, and I know every time I'm not successful, I fail, I know God wants to teach me something. But one thing is certain, every single thing I've done since a certain age, it's planned by the hand of God. And I've always, it's been always the reference of everything. I don't do anything without my faith.
Thank you.
And then the miracle of being rector of Edinburgh University, one of those miracles just made me did. What? I am the rector. You are? Can you sit down there? You're the rector. What? I am the rector. That's a miracle. That's a miracle.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now let other people have a shot.
So it's loud. So if anybody has questions, if you want to raise your